Today I'm going to be talking about the Jack Bonded series, which is Jack Bonded, Jack Bonded Rye, and Jack Triple Mash. This could be argued is the best bang for your buck whiskey the brand produces. I'm going to be comparing the official supplier tasting notes with what I think these products taste like, and then I'm going to be comparing the average retail price in my market and let you guys know the most important question: are these products worth the money? Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian Donnelly. I'm an expert in distilled spirits with 9 years experience in the alcoholic beverage industry, and my goal is to educate consumers more about the alcoholic beverages they enjoy so they can make better shopping and drinking decisions. Jack Bonded is not just Jack Black bottled at 100 proof or 50% ABV. It is a unique mingling of barrels chosen for its depth of character. I already made a video where I talked about the Jack Bonded series, where I kind of went through the production process, a bit of the backstory, and the feedback I got on that video is, when are you going to taste these? When are you going to taste these? When are you going to taste these? What good is this information about whiskey without tasting the whiskey and talking about how the whiskey tastes? I think one comment even said, like, what am I going to do? Just like stare at the bottles and think about how much I know about them? I want to know how it tastes. So I get it. I really appreciate that kind of feedback. I love those type of comments. They really help inform the next videos that I do. So before I moved on to other brands, I just wanted to circle back, refilm this video where I go through and taste each product individually, compare the tasting notes, compare the average retail price, and let you guys know if I think these products are worth it. First, I just want to cover a few basics. All right, all Jack Daniel's whiskey in the entire world is distilled at the Jack Daniel's distillery in Lynchburg, Tennessee. So Jack Daniel's never sources any contract whiskey. All Jack Daniel's is Tennessee whiskey. Tennessee whiskey, if you're unfamiliar, is a legally different category than bourbon. It follows the bourbon regulations very closely until you get to charcoal mellowing. So Tennessee whiskey legally has to go through what's called the Lincoln County process. That's a process of charcoal mellowing. So basically, after the whiskey is distilled, so after distillation, you have what's called white dog or new make spirit. Before that whiskey goes into the barrel for aging, it goes through a process of filtration through sugar maple charcoal. The amount of charcoal they use varies kind of Tennessee whiskey brand to Tennessee whiskey brand. Jack Daniel's, for example, uses these vats that are about 10 feet tall and about 5 feet wide. When you tour the distillery, you get a chance to see them. They're gravity fed through that sugar maple charcoal, which the brand makes themselves. During the tour, you see these kind of giant wood piles, which looks like these giant stacks of pallets. They burn that. They make their own charcoal. They fill these giant vats. The new make spirit is gravity fed through that. The filtration process helps not only define Tennessee whiskey legally, but also stylistically, and it gives it a slightly different texture and a slightly different flavor compared to kind of true Kentucky bourbon. So after filtration, that whiskey goes into the barrel, it's aged, comes out of the barrel, it's proofed down to whatever your bottling proof is, goes in the bottle, and then it's sold to the consumer. So that's Tennessee whiskey. So all Jack Daniel's is a Tennessee whiskey. People often refer to Jack Daniel's as a bourbon. A lot of people don't know to use the umbrella term American whiskey when referring to bourbon, American rye whiskey, Tennessee whiskey, American single malt whiskey. A lot of American whiskey gets just put in the bourbon umbrella, but really the umbrella should be American whiskey, and bourbon, just like Tennessee whiskey, is a subcategory of American whiskey. So now that we've covered that, let's talk about how the Jack Bonded series fits into the rest of the Jack Daniel's portfolio. So you have regular Jack Daniel's, which is often referred to as Jack Black. The first trade-up option from Jack Black is Gentleman Jack. Gentleman Jack undergoes that charcoal mellowing process twice. Gentleman Jack is a perfect entry-level premium whiskey, where it has a very light, approachable flavor profile. And so for anyone that is interested in getting into more, serious whiskey options, the Gentleman Jack is a great first step. Well, previously, the next jump was all the way up to the Jack Single Barrel series. And the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel series is an incredible lineup of products. You have the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel, you have the cast strength or barrel proof single barrel, you have the single barrel rye, you now have the barrel proof single barrel proof rye, and then they do some kind of different one-offs around the single barrel series. But there was a big price gap in between Gentleman Jack and the single barrel line. The single barrel line is arguably the most super premium thing Jack Daniel's makes. I know they make Jack Daniel's Sinatra. I know they make some kind of one-offs. You saw that with the Jack 10-year, 12-year, now the 14-year. But when you talk about the items from the brand that are available every single day, I try to stay away from talking about any sort of allocated bourbon, any sort of limited release bourbon. I want this content to be very evergreen and very approachable. And I know a lot of other kind of whiskey channels tend to focus too much on the allocated stuff and the limited release stuff because it's sexy and everyone wants what they can't have. I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to talk about value and the stuff that's available every day because, I mean, if you drink American whiskey, if you drink bourbon, rye, Tennessee whiskey, there's so many incredible options. The world is your oyster. There are so many incredible options that don't have limited inventory. So, those are the items I want to highlight because, no matter what market you're in, you can probably get your hands on these bottles. So, the Jack Bonded series, I think, is one of the coolest things the Jack Daniel's brand has done. The reason the Jack Bonded series was created is not just to fill a price gap within the brand's portfolio, but also to kind of highlight the craftsmanship and the ability, the different things that the brand can do and the distillery can do, because Jack Daniel's does everything themselves. They're in full, complete control of their production process from grain to glass. Each of the products in the Jack Daniel's Bonded series meet the stipulations laid out by the Bottle and Bond Act of 1897. So, for any of you that already drink bourbon, you're probably very, very familiar with bottled and bond whiskey, or particularly bottled and bond bourbon. The Bottled and Bond Act of 1897 was the first consumer protection law in the United States. That probably says a lot for us that the first consumer protection law was to protect whiskey and not necessarily food. In order to label your whiskey bottled and bond, your whiskey has to meet 4 criteria. It has to be distilled at a single distillery, and it has to be distilled in one distillation season, which is the first half of the year, so January through June, or the second half of the year, July through December. Your product has to be aged a minimum of 4 years in a federally bonded warehouse, and then finally bottled at 100 proof or 50% ABV. The reason this is so important is consumers had no guarantee of quality for the whiskey they purchased until the Old Forester brand sold the first bottled bourbon. Whiskey was typically sold by the barrel, and then customers bought whiskey out of that barrel from their local saloon, their local hotel, whatever. And that whiskey was often doctored or adulterated. So you really didn't know what you were drinking. And you could often drink things that were incredibly harmful or toxic. And so the Bottled and Bond Act gave consumers some measure of quality, some guarantee of quality. Nowadays, with the revitalization of the cocktail scene and all things old or new again, there are a lot of bottled and bond whiskeys on the market. It's very interesting. A lot of customers that see a 4-year-old 100 proof whiskey will automatically call it bottled and bond. If it does not say bottled and bond on the label, the reason they are not bottled and bond is because often the barrels before bottling are a mingling of different distillation seasons. Maybe you're combining barrels that were distilled the first half of the year and the back half of the year, and so those are 2 different distillation seasons, so they cannot be considered bottled and bond. So again, this is the Jack Daniel's distillery kind of flexing its skill set and showing that, hey, we can make Tennessee whiskey that meets all the classifications for bottle and bond at a very specific price point that I think is perfect for premium, classic whiskey-forward cocktails. And we'll talk about some cocktail recommendations when I go through each product individually. Before I get into the tasting component, I think it is important to talk about a little bit of the production process. So, the Jack Daniel's distillery makes 3 different mash bills. The first mash bill is their Tennessee whiskey mash bill. That's 80% corn, 8% rye, 12% malted barley. The majority of Jack Daniel's products are distilled from this mash bill. The second mash bill the brand makes is their rye mash bill. That's distilled from 70% rye, 18% corn, and 12% malted barley. So for the Jack Daniel's Bonded Rye, obviously it's distilled from the rye mash bill. The Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Rye, that's distilled from the rye mash bill. Jack Daniel's made a more entry-level rye that was kind of more line price with Jack Black or regular Jack Daniel's, but that product has been officially discontinued. And now the most entry-level Jack Daniel's rye is the Jack Bonded Rye. And the final mash bill the brand makes is an American single malt mash bill. And the final mash bill the brand makes is a single malt mash bill. So American single malts are an up-and-coming category. They've now received some official recognition. So Jack Daniel's distills an American single malt whiskey. I'm filming this in March 2025, and at this time, the Jack Daniel's single malt whiskey is only available in duty-free, so it's not available in my home market of Oklahoma. I'm sure that will eventually change as they ramp up production, but as of this time, it's only available duty-free, so as you're flying, and if you're visiting these big airports with international shopping, be on the lookout for the Jack Daniel's single malt whiskey. And I know I already talked about this on my last Jack Bonded video, but I can't help but mention the production details. I love the kind of nerdy whiskey production information, so I'm just going to read some information from a write-up I did on the Jack Bonded series from my website. So we talked about the mash bills for each of these products. Well, when you combine a product's mash bill with its yeast strain, that's what's known as a recipe. The Jack Daniel's distillery uses a proprietary yeast strain which can officially be traced back to 1938 and is maintained by a full-time microbiologist. Chris Fletcher, the current master distiller for Jack Daniel's after Jeff Arnett retired, he actually started with the distillery as their microbiologist, maintaining the brand's yeast strain. The fermentation process lasts between 4 and 6 days and uses 30% or less sour mash. If you're unfamiliar with sour mashing, sometimes referred to as backset, it is a technique used to increase the fermenting liquid's acidity by adding the acidic residue that comes out of the base of the beer still after distillation. All mash bills are double distilled to 170 proof or 70% ABV. And then the new make spirit, also called White Dog, is gravity fed through 10 feet of sugar maple charcoal, officially called the Lincoln County process. This step of charcoal mellowing legally separates Tennessee whiskey from bourbon. We mentioned that earlier. Next, water is added to the whiskey until it reaches a barrel entry proof of 125 or 62.5% ABV. All water for the Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey brand comes from the Cave Spring Hollow, which is an on-site natural limestone filtered water source, and the principal reason the whiskey distillery's location was chosen. I just want to briefly touch on barrels. So, Brown-Forman, parent company for Jack Daniel's, Woodford Reserve, Old Forester, they operated 2 different cooperages here in the United States. One was in Alabama that makes barrels for the Jack Daniel's brand, and one is in Louisville, Kentucky, and makes barrels for the Old Forester and Woodford Reserve brands. Well, Brown-Forman always pride themselves on, owning the cooperage process. 80% of the whiskey's flavor and 100% of its color, they say, comes from the barrel. So Brown-Forman said, we're an American whiskey brand. We want to control every aspect of the cooperage process and make these custom barrels with custom toast and custom char and make sure that these barrels are perfectly tailored to the final product, to the final whiskey we want to create. We don't want to trust any of these third-party cooperages to do that. Well, I'm sure that's very, very expensive. So we've already started to see, not just with the big Brown-Forman layoffs in the first part of 2025, but with some decisions they made with their Jack Daniel's cooperage. So all the barrels for Jack Daniel's are made at the Alabama Cooperage in Trinity, Alabama, which was formerly known as the Jack Daniel's Cooperage. In 2024, Brown-Forman sold the Jack Daniel's Cooperage to the Independent Stave Company. And Independent Stave will continue to produce barrels at this particular cooperage for the Jack Daniel's brand, but Brown-Forman as a parent company will no longer be the owner of this cooperage. The cooperage will continue to make barrels for the Jack Daniel's brand in what the 2 companies are calling a strategic partnership. All right, here's the first product in the Jack Bonded series. And you'll notice, if you've drank Jack Daniel's before, you'll notice the brand underwent a package change. Well, that package change first started with the Jack Bonded series. And what they did is they transitioned to a bottle that pays homage to the very first bottles that the brand used. And you can see it has this really kind of classic, vintage feel to it. It looks really, really good in my opinion. And this packaging looks super clean. There's the beautiful embossing. And then here's some rules defining bottled and bond. And of course, more beautiful embossing on the back. And you can see it kind of has this textured neck. Let's see if this shows up on camera. Really cool. I believe by the time this video goes out, most regular Jack Daniel's should have transitioned to this bottle. But if you drank Jack Daniel's in the past and you wondered why the packaging looks new, it started with the Jack Bonded series and then transitioned to the rest of the Jack Black lineup. But this bottle more closely replicates the original bottle used for Jack Daniels. As I mentioned earlier, this product is distilled from the Jack Daniels Tennessee Whiskey Mash Bill, which is 80% corn, 8% rye, and 12% malted barley. It undergoes charcoal mellowing. It meets all 4 criteria of the Bottled and Bond Act. But one of the most important things that the brand wants to communicate about this product is not merely Jack Black bottled at 100 proof. That is most people's initial thoughts, but really what they did is Jack Daniels is produced on such a large scale, and I don't even know how many hundreds and hundreds or thousands of barrels go into a bottling batch for regular Jack Daniels in order to have that level of consistency at that volume. The brand is probably curating a smaller mingling of barrels for the bottling, which allows that each batch to kind of have a little more personality, perhaps separate itself, be a little less generic compared to regular Jack Black. So that was, everyone I talked to from Brown-Forman, that was one point they really, really wanted to stress, was this is not Jack Black at 100 proof. This, with the way they're, with the way that they are mingling their barrels for each bottling batch, this creates a product that is noticeably different in the way it tastes compared to Jack Black. Jack Bonded is not just Jack Black bottled at 100 proof or 50% ABV. It is a unique mingling of barrels chosen for its depth of character. And last thing before I taste this product, the official cocktail recommendation for Jack Bonded is the Boulevardier. If you're unfamiliar with the Boulevardier, it is simply a Negroni made with whiskey, usually bourbon. It's one of my favorite cocktails. In this case, you would use Jack Bonded. As I've said many times on this channel, my favorite vermouth for making premium and super premium whiskey cocktails is Carpana Antica. And then you use typically Campari, but there's several other competitive options for that kind of Italian aperitif, for that kind of Italian bitter aperitif category. And then finally garnish with an orange peel. So you're just combining Jack Bonded, a sweet vermouth, and an Italian aperitif. So think Jack Bonded, Carpana Antica, Campari, or a product similar to Campari. You're shaking that with ice. You're serving that neat up. Garnish with an orange peel. Be an absolutely incredible cocktail. Okay, enough talking about it. Let's taste it. So, the official supplier tasting notes, the color is described as dark mahogany, and I would definitely agree with that. I mean, it's got a beautiful color to it. And if you've ever drank Jack Daniels Black, or if you've ever drank regular Jack Daniels or the Jack Black label or Gentleman Jack, I mean, you can see a huge color difference just from regular Jack to this. The aroma is described as caramel, rich oak, and spice. That's got a really nice nose, really kind of classic, bourbon, Tennessee whiskey, American whiskey flavors. It's nice. Very nice nose. And the taste on the palate is described as big and bold with dark brown sugar, cooked fruit, and seared oak. All right, let's give it our first taste. Ooh, that is nice. This is the first spirit I've had to drink today. And even that first sip, I'm honestly going to have to let my mouth kind of warm up to the alcohol to be able to really, pick out all these different flavors. But even on that first sip, first alcohol I've had today, that 100 proof is so well integrated. It's not boozy at all. It's unbelievable. I mean, you could tell someone this is 80 proof and they would definitely believe you. I mean, that 100 proof is so well integrated, and that just speaks to the quality of this product. So I'm going to revisit it on a second sip, and that way I can really kind of talk in more detail about those flavors. Oh yeah, that is such good flavor. It is big and bold, dark brown sugar, very accurate. I don't know if I'm quite getting cooked fruit, but definitely seared oak. There's this is a very barrel forward product, and you get a really nice complex. You're getting some really nice barrel complexity with this, but it coats the palate, but it's not heavy. And a lot of people talk about this with Tennessee whiskey, where it doesn't have this weight to the palate, but there is really good flavor here. That bottling proof is so well integrated, and you're getting some really good complex barrel forward flavors that are really tasty. I mean, I think oftentimes when talking about reviewing whiskey, a lot of people forget to mention, is this product enjoyable to drink? Is this tasty? And they get too caught up in the nuances of the review. And so I would definitely say this is super tasty, super drinkable, good flavors. The finish is described as warm baking spice with a bit of smoke. Definitely a lot of baking spice flavors, very stereotypical flavors. But it's a nice warming. It's still kind of hanging around on my palate. So it didn't die off really quickly, which again is a sign of quality. I don't know if I'm quite getting smoke. I don't know if that's just meant from the kind of charring of the barrel, if there's a bit of smoke there, but really great classic American whiskey flavors that are really enjoyable to drink. And that proof is just so well integrated in that flavor profile. As of now, the Jack Bonded series comes in 2 different sizes. It comes in 700 milliliter bottles. Yes, that's 700 milliliters, not 750, 700 milliliter bottles. And the reason for that is the standard bottling size in Europe. And Brown-Forman no longer wanted to, for all their new products, they no longer wanted to produce 2 different sizes for both the American market and the European market. So all new products from Brown-Forman, you start seeing them all come out at 700 milliliters. So they can be more standardized with the European market. So the Jack Bonded series is available in 700 milliliter bottles and 1 liter bottles at the time of filming this video. So let's talk about the most important thing. Is this product worth the price? I'm based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm going to be talking about average retail pricing in my home market of Oklahoma, but every single market's different. So for more accurate pricing, please check your local liquor store. So in my home market, this product's going to retail somewhere between, let's call it $29 and $31 for a 700 milliliter bottle. So 700 milliliter bottle between $29 and $31. Do I think this product's worth it? I definitely do. I think no questions asked. This is definitely worth the money. And the reason for that is, you could drink this neat on the rocks and enjoy it all day, but at basically $30 for a bottle, this is still very much in the cocktail realm. You can make some incredible premium whiskey forward cocktails with this, classic cocktails with this product. And the boldness of the flavor profile, along with the 100 proof, the higher bottling proof, is really going to hold up in a cocktail. And it's not going to get lost. It's not going to get whitewashed by other ingredients. It's going to really stand up and be a great backbone to whatever cocktail you make. So I think this product definitely worth the money, and this would be an incredible premium cocktail whiskey. The next product is the Jack Bonded Rye. So very similar packaging. And of course, what is a rye whiskey without a green label? So really clean packaging. You get the same embossing, same brand information about the Bottled and Bond Act, and then some really premium embossing on the back of these. These bottles just look so good. So, Jack Daniel's Bonded Rye. We talked about the 3 different mash bills that the Jack Daniel's distillery produces. The regular Jack Bonded is distilled from their flagship Tennessee whiskey mash bill, and then the Jack Bonded Rye, which replaced the original flagship rye, this is distilled from their rye mash bill. As a reminder, the Jack Rye mash bill is 70% rye, 18% corn, and 12% malted barley. Jack Daniel's used to produce another rye whiskey, which had that kind of white, cream, parchment colored label. That product's been officially discontinued, and now the most entry-level Jack Daniel's Rye is the Bonded Rye. All right, let's taste it. For those of you that have watched any of the videos on this channel, you know that I love American rye whiskey. I think it just has so much flavor. It offers so much flavor and is so incredible in cocktails. All right, let's compare this with the official tasting notes from the brands. So the color is described as amber. The aroma is described as an enticing blend of sweet, soft fruit, rye spice, and oak. I would say that has a really nice rye kind of nose. Still relatively subtle, but you can really tell this is a rye. The taste on the palate is described as bold and complex with notes of dried fruits and toffee and caramel. Oh yeah. God, that is good. Really good rye flavor, but it's not overwhelming. I mean, it's not, I mean, a lot of people I know are afraid of rye whiskey. They think it's too sharp, think it's too bitter, but man, they do such a wonderful job on this. And maybe because, there's a good amount of corn in here, good amount of malted barley, it's not that stereotypical MGP 95.5. This is really nice. This is a bourbon drinker's rye. Good rye flavor, but still soft, good complexity. Again, that proof, that 100 proof is so well integrated. You could tell someone this is an 80 proof whiskey and they would absolutely believe you. All right, let's revisit it. Oh yeah. It's got this bold flavor that is just really pleasant. Bold and complex. Again, I completely agree with that. Notes of dried fruits, toffee and caramel. It strikes this nice balance between, the rye flavors with those barrel flavors. I mean, they just really play off each other really well. And there's so much good balance in terms of the different types of flavor profiles in this particular product. So enjoyable, so tasty. The finish is described as peppery rye spice. Definitely agree with that. But again, it's a different type of rye than what maybe most consumers are used to. I know a lot of people really love those super high rye mash bills, 95% rye, 5% malted barley. But this is a beautiful middle ground between, drinking bourbon or Tennessee whiskey and those really high rye, stereotypical MGP rye mash bills. This falls somewhere really nicely in between. It's a bit of a cliche I know it's a bit of a cliche to say a bourbon drinker's rye because I feel like people say that far too often about too many products, but this really is that case. I mean, if you like bourbon, I think you'd really like this, and boy, would this be incredible in a cocktail. Speaking of cocktails, the official cocktail recommendation from Brown-Forman for this product is the 133. And so they described that as Jack Bonded Rye, Amaro, and grapefruit liqueur garnished with a grapefruit twist. I love the combination of Amaro and an American whiskey, and I think Amaro and this product would do really nice. And then grapefruit liqueur, I found that super interesting. I've never had this cocktail. I've never made this cocktail. I've never drank this cocktail before. But, I think that would find a very interesting balance between the kind of fruitiness of the grapefruit liqueur, the bold spice from the rye whiskey, and the kind of supporting elements of an Amaro. I think that'd be super interested. So maybe I'll have to try this cocktail sometime soon. So the most important question, do I think the Jack Bonded Rye is worth the money? So let me check retail pricing. It looks like all three of these products are going to be line price. So the Jack Bonded Rye for a 700 milliliter bottle is going to retail in my market somewhere between $29 and $31. So do I think this is worth it? I definitely do. I think the Jack Bonded Rye is definitely worth the money. And it could be argued, especially if you like rye whiskey, that this product offers even more flavor and is even more of a bang for your buck product than the regular Jack Bonded. All right, here we are. Final product, and that's the Jack Daniel's Triple Mash. This product is super, super unique. And so, before I get into it, here's what the package looks like. This kind of reddish pink label. Some production details about this particular product. Again, you got bossing on the front, bossing on the back, same kind of vintage packaging. So, regular Jack Bonded's black, Jack Bonded Rye is green, and the Jack Bonded Triple Mash is this kind of reddish, pinkish red, I would say it's more red, label. So what on earth is Jack Triple Mash? What are the three mashes? Well, if you remember from earlier in the video, I said that the Jack Daniel's Distillery distills 3 different mash bills. So the Jack Daniel's Bonded Triple Mash, or the Jack Daniel's Triple Mash, is a blending of those 3 mash bills. So the Jack Triple Mash is a blend of 20% bonded Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey, so think the black label, 60% bonded Jack Daniel's Rye, so think the green label, and 20% bonded Jack Daniel's American Single Malt Whiskey, which, if you remember, I said is only available in duty-free at this moment. The only way you can access Jack Daniel's Single Malt American Whiskey is part of the blend of the Triple Mash. So all three whiskeys going into this blend, each of them individually meet the criteria of the Bottled and Bond Act. And again, just to cover that again, that's one distillery, one distillation season, so January to June or July to December, aged a minimum of 4 years in a federally bonded warehouse, and finally bottled at 100 proof or 50% ABV. So this product is incredibly fascinating. It takes 3 different bottled and bond whiskeys from 3 different mash bills, each very different, and blends them together in this kind of carefully curated proportion. So I tasted this product when it first came out. I'm very excited to revisit it. All right, the color is described as copper. The aroma is described as dried fruit, oak, and toast. Very subtle nose on this. All right, the taste is described as honey sweetness with underlying grain spice and dry oak. Oh, wow. God, that tastes so noticeably different than the other 2 products. You know, it's so interesting to be able to try all 3 of these back to back. You know, there's components of the bonded and the bonded rye in this, but it tastes nothing like either of the 2. It's kind of the sum is greater than its parts. Honeyed sweetness, I would say that's very accurate. Underlying grains, spice, and dry oak. Honey sweetness, I would say that's really an accurate description. And then again, you get these kind of secondary supporting elements of barrel flavors, and then, you know, I'm assuming it's that high proportion of rye. You get this kind of grain forward spice to it. Let me revisit this. God, that is good. So different, but good. And again, bottled at 100 proof, 50% ABV. The proof is so well integrated. There's so much flavor. It's so drinkable. That is really good. Really unique. Almost difficult to like put your finger on exactly what you're drinking. Oh yeah. And the finish is rounded with, and the finish is described as rounded with browned bread and a hint of char. I could see this kind of toasted bread. You know, it's a hint of char, you know, kind of barrel forward flavor. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, it's got a really nice finish. Good complexity, really good flavor. And the official cocktail recommendation for this product is the Old Pal. So if anyone watching are big Campari fans, you probably heard of the Old Pal. In this case, it's Jack Daniel's Triple Mash. It's a dry vermouth, and it's Italian aperitif, which is the generic way of describing a product like Campari. Again, Campari is the kind of category leader for that particular category, but there's a variety of kind of craft Campari type products that are now available on the market, and garnished with a lemon peel. So this would probably make a very good Old Pal. I've had Old Pals before. I love Campari and Campari cocktails, so I bet this would make a really good Old Pal. And the most important question, is this product worth the money? Well, judging by my enthusiasm, you can probably already guess. In my market, all 3 of these products are line price. You could probably find this product between $29 and $31. So do I think it's worth it? I definitely do. I think this product is super, super worth the money. All 3 of these products offer incredible value for the money, great bang for your buck for drinkers. But this product especially, just because it's so different and so complex, I think this product is definitely worth the money. I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Triple Mash was always $1 or $2 more than the Bonded or the Bonded Rye. But I just double checked pricing before making this video, and all 3 products are line price in my home market of Oklahoma. Maybe Brown-Forman is adjusting their pricing nationwide so that all three of these products are aligned price, since they all kind of fall in the same series and kind of target the same customer. Well, that's a wrap. As I mentioned throughout the video, I think all three of these products offer tremendous value for the money. So, if you've not had these products, or you have seen them and you're maybe interested in drinking them, or if you've never heard of the Bonded series and you think that Jack Daniel's only makes Jack Black, then you're in for a huge surprise, a really tasty surprise. So I highly recommend you go out, you purchase these products, you try these products. They come in 2 different size options. You can easily enjoy any of these neat or on the rocks by themselves, but they all make incredible cocktails and give you a lot of versatile options when it comes to making craft, premium, classic whiskey forward cocktails. Thank you so much again for watching. Please give this video a like and consider subscribing. If you'd like to be notified whenever I have new content on my website or YouTube channel, please consider subscribing to my email newsletter. I'll leave a link below in the description. And if you'd like to support this channel further, please consider becoming a Patreon member or gift me a cocktail to the link below in the description. Thank you so much again for your support. And if you're interested in this content but don't necessarily care about the video component, I highly encourage you to check out my podcast. It's just the audio component of these kind of educational videos and product review videos. And you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any major podcast platform. Please check it out. Please subscribe. If you're enjoying the content, please leave me a comment. Please leave me a review. I very much appreciate it. And if you have any recommendations for this channel, any feedback, any products you want me to cover, any spirit categories you want me to talk about, put it down in the comments, or, shoot me an email. I personally read every single email I receive, and I always try my best to respond to all of them. So please drop me a note. You can always leave a comment in the description. And as always, please drink responsibly. Cheers.